Welcome to our video around employee share plans. Going to go through a bit of an introduction today of the who, what, when, how and why of employee share plans. I'm Trent Hadfield, a director at 1980. Let's get started. Let's start with the what. As the name suggests, an employee share plan is a program that provides employees with ownership in the business. Now, it can take many different forms, and I'll talk a bit more about that in the future. But generally, what's happening is you've got some long-standing employees and you want to bring them into the business. They're not necessarily stepping up to be business partners per se, but you go due to loyalty, due to the seniority, whatever it might be, we want to bring some of these employees into our business, have them share in the business success as well. Generally, it will take a form of a trust that is then, they will have a share of that trust, and that trust in turn will own part of your business, but it can take many forms. We'll touch on why next, and that's the important one. When looking at the why you would implement an employee share plan in your business, many reasons, and I've just listed the top 6 here. One is, and the first one is to attract and retain employees. And so this is where most businesses do tend to implement one. They go, we've got some long-standing employees, we want to reward them. Or often it is when they have some employees who are looking possibly to leave the business, be it to a competitor, be it to start up their own business and go out in competition. And so it's seen as a way of, hey, let's put this in place, locks them in, which I don't like that term, but gives them a reason to stay. I'll say that. And so that's why often the business starts to implement the employee share scheme or plan. But then that flips out the other way, and it's also a way to attract employees as well, because if an employee is weighing up 2 different options as people to go work for, or prospective employee, then you've got this and another business doesn't. This is obviously something which might tip you over the edge. Very important one, and I think this is one of the biggest reasons, is it aligns the employees and the business's interests. So no longer do you have an us and a them, if the employees are also benefiting out of the business and getting a little bit of those profits too. So that's very much a big one there. And another one which I haven't listed here, but I've seen in practice, is it actually aligns the employees with each other. So no longer is every employee just working for the business, and I'd say the us and them, but they're working for each other. So you actually find that in turn, and goes to that next point of motivating employees, it motivates those employees also to perform well, because not only are they getting a bit of a share of the profits, their co-workers are as well. And it helps hopefully lift all the employees up, because they're all responsible for each other and to each other. And to a degree, it might even mean that some of the underperforming employees either lift up or leave, which is obviously very important. Coming back to that as well, the motivation and everything, it does improve the business performance. Once again, if the employees are motivated, they're getting something out of it, naturally, the business performance will lift. And a big part of that also, and I sort of look at this and you go, if, for instance, you are transferring 10% of your business across to the employee share plan, well, if you grow the business by 10% because of it, because those employees are more engaged and performing better, well, you actually haven't lost anything there. So there's definitely it improves business performance, so it should pay for itself over the long run. And when we're talking about paying for itself as well, that attracting and retaining employees, same sort of deal. We know the cost of replacing staff is expensive. I often think it probably costs about an annual salary worth in a year. When you look at the time, the lost knowledge, the time of hiring and training and all those sorts of things, every bit of a year's salary, and sometimes in some situations a lot more. So you get a bit of a lift there in the business performance as well, and business profits, etc. Next one here is the tax benefits. Something we won't go too much into today. Structured correctly, so not every employee share plan will meet these targets, but there is potential tax benefits by implementing one, both for the business, but also for the employees. And that comes back to as well, them possibly getting profit share or equity and the value being on equity over just getting a wage. And there are in Australia some tax concessions for employee share schemes, provided they are set up in a certain manner which meets certain requirements. So a big one there. So I won't go any further into it today, but something which to keep in the back of your mind. And the last one I'll put down here, and I think it's a really important one, is it is a path to succession. Selling your business can be hard. We don't know what that would be, and it's not necessarily this is the absolute path to succession, but it opens up one of the paths to succession, and be that the employee share plan itself actually eventually comes and buys the business, and that's something I believe we're going to see more and more growth in, and very excited about that area, and happy to discuss that further, what that would look like with you. But also, it might, within this process, identify certain staff members or employees that could potentially grow into potential business owners and take over business from yourself. So it is one of those paths. Just to go into that who and how a bit, I start with this quote, which is one I really like. Show me the incentives and I will show you the outcome, by Charlie Munger, one of the world's greatest investors. I think that's very important, because you have to set these up correctly. If you set them up wrong, then you're incentivizing the right thing. So straight away, with the how is, we need to go through the process of understanding, what are you trying to achieve? What are those benefits? What are the ones that are really important to you? And making sure we structure it correctly, because structured wrong, it can actually disincentivize. And especially if we are not having it available to every employee, how do you choose the employees? And that's one of the things we consider, is who gets to be part of this employee share plan. Is it somebody that's been there for a certain period of time? Is it somebody that's a certain level of seniority? Is it an invitation only thing, or is it a formularized thing? So that's part of how we look at it. So there are many other things we've got to look at as well, is, do the employees actually have to put some money to be a part of it? So do they buy in? If they buy in, does the business actually give them the money to do so? Or is it just an automatic thing that they get shares in the employee share scheme? There's many different ways of who gets involved and how we do it. And without going too into the weeds, I've calculated over 600 different permutations. If you look at all the different ways of it structured, do they just get profit, or is there an actual equity component? So when the employee leaves the business, do they actually get paid out for their ownership? So all these sorts of questions come into it, and it is absolutely crucial, because this is, at the end of the day, an incentive, that we set that up correctly so you get the right outcome. And now just to touch on the when. Generally, it's appropriate for businesses over about that 8-10 staff members plus. Before that, at a smaller staff member, it just doesn't necessarily meet the requirements. And especially when you look at the cost of implementing, etc., it just doesn't necessarily make sense. In saying that, there is, once again, go back to the previous section there, many ways we can do that. So employee share schemes and plans are generally a multi-employee thing, when you have many of your employees in there. But there is tie to just simply bringing in business partners too. And something which we certainly look at is going, if there's just a handful, or it might be a small business, we might structure it in a different way, because it might be more a business partner structure than an employee share plan. But effectively, once you grow to that size, that you're reaching a level of maturity and established at that sort of 8-10 employees plus, and there's no limit. These are very common in big companies, big public companies, etc. But smaller companies less so. But that 8-10 employees plus is when you go, okay, we're now in a spot where we could potentially implement one. What I do think, though, is, and the key points that I put down here is, don't wait until you're doing it in order to lock in a staff member who may be looking to leave. And that's where we commonly see people come to us to do it. You go, oh, we've got these staff member, they want to leave. How do we lock them in? And we'll do this, and this will help with that, because it does take time to go back to the previous section there to implement, etc. So be proactive. Plan early. And I think that's got positive as well. You don't want to be on the back foot and have a relationship where you're on the back foot just responding to the staff's requests. So be proactive, plan early, think about what's going to be needed in the future to make one of these things happen. So planning early, and at the time of that succession point, something I often say is a business ready for succession is a strong business. Same sort of situation is here. A business where you're doing things which make it good for an employee share plan makes it a strong business. So we're talking about good systems and processes, good controls, all these sorts of things, a really strong business. So part of this process is also making the business strong. So we do, in part of our process, at the start, actually carry out a valuation of your business and identify areas which could help in building that valuation. So certainly doing this process, thinking about it early, is something which will build your business strong for succession as well, and hopefully just make it a stronger business. For you, the next steps, if you want to move further, certainly contact us via our website. I've got the email address there, team@1980advisory.com.au. We're happy just to have an online discussion to help you understand, is this something I'd really like to proceed with? Or is it something we're interested for now, but what do we need to do? Can't do it till later, but what should we do now to make that happen? Lastly, just whilst I got you, a little bit about us, 1980 Advisory. We're complete business guidance. So top to bottom, that's actually where 1980 comes from. It's the distance from the top of Mount Everest to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of the ocean. So we really work with businesses to help them across all different areas of their business, from strategy and planning, systems and processes, the employees, the product, and down to some of the financial and risk elements as well. So certainly we're happy to help you across any of these areas. We see great success, and do get in contact.